Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the Virtual Village Hall Film Club. We're delighted to be joined today by Richelle Wilder and Isibéal Ballance, the producers of the exciting new Sky original family adventure, The Amazing Mr Blunden, coming to our TV screens on Christmas Eve. Hopefully you've seen the trailer that we've been playing. Richelle, Isibéal, welcome to the Virtual Village Hall, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting us.
The Amazing Mr Blunden is a time-travelling story adapted from Antonia Barber's children's fantasy novel The Ghosts and inspired by the classic 1972 film of the same name. It stars the wonderful Simon Callow, Mark Gatiss and Tamsin Greig and a cast of talented young newcomers. Can you please tell us a bit more about the film and the actors involved?
So Isibéal and I approached Mark Gatiss to see if he was interested in writing the revised version, and he was delighted because it's one of his all-time favourite films. He has reverted back to the book rather than the original film, because we wanted to set the film in the present day rather than do two time periods. In the original film, it's two time periods. So we have kids, newcomers, who are present day kids in London, 2021, and they go back 200 years to 1821. And we are absolutely blessed with an amazing cast of Simon Callow as Mr Blunden, Tamsin Greig as Mrs Wickens, who's the villain, alongside her husband, Mr Wickens, played by Mark Gatiss. And we've got a cast of wonderful character actors, which you don't see very often actually in television or film, who just absolutely support the stellar name cast as well as the newcomers.
Yeah, absolutely. It was, some brilliant talents involved. And you mentioned Mark's adaptation of the novel, and how was that process? Is it tricky? Did you find it tricky adapting a classic text for a television film?
I'll let Isibéal answer that one.
Well, we were quite fortunate because it's actually already a film. So the book was written in the 60s, The Ghost by Antonia Barber. And then in 1972, Lionel Jeffries made a film that he adapted and kind of directed himself. So we already knew, I mean, it's not quite cheating, but we kind of already knew it worked beautifully as a film. But I can't speak so passionately about the 1972 film. Richelle can much more passionately, because it was one of her all-time favorite films as a child. And when we set up our company about 6 years ago, Adorable Media, Richelle kept going, I really, really, really want to remake The Amazing Mr Blunden. She's got these amazing memories of being at the cinema and her father dragging her out and her wanting to watch it again. So when we had the opportunity to work with Mark, we were like, oh, would he be interested? And he equally had Richelle's passion about the original film. So we kind of knew that it would work, but obviously we wanted to make, one that was more relevant to a modern day audience, and also put our own kind of, I want to say stamp, but stamp feels like too kind of strong a word, but we also wanted to bring up something up ourselves to the adaptation as well. So yes.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And in terms of kind of bringing, your own touch to it, and Richelle, especially for you, if it was a childhood favourite, how would you say that this version kind of compares to the original film? What were those kind of stamps of your own that you put on it?
I think that the fact that we've gone back to the book and done the present day means that we're doing something a little bit different in terms of how we now see The Amazing Mr Blunden. Actually, we had our cast and crew screening on the 12th of December. And afterwards, I went home and watched the 1972 version. And they sit beautifully together. We've honoured the 1972 version. We're very, very reverential about it. Hidden within our own film are little Easter eggs, which are a homage to Lionel Jeffries, the original cast, and the beautiful music of Elba Bernstein. But we've put our own touch on it, which is, a 21st century version of how to do it. I think they're both very beautiful. And I think because we love the original so much, I think we've got an opportunity to 50 years on, because next year will be the 50-year anniversary. that we can bring a whole new audience to this incredible narrative.
Yes, absolutely. And we mentioned the cast as well, just being so fantastic. How did they get on? Did they get on really well on set?
I think it may be one of the happiest sets of all of them. There were we have 4 children within the film, and some of them really are children. We have a 10-year-old, and we had a 16-year-old and a 17-year-old, and a 23-year-old. And they became their own family, and they were always together on set. They were always laughing around on set. They were in awe of the other actors. It's quite something to see. And then with the older cast, I think that Mark Gatiss is an extremely decent man, and he brings a calm and an intelligence that's spread out across the entire cast and the entire crew. And Simon Callow and Tamsin are really quite magnificent.
Oh, yeah.
So it was pretty glorious all the way through.
Simon Callow is exactly what you want him to be. He's charming, intelligent, funny. Also, Mark and Simon have worked together before and know each other and respect each other, you know. And Mark had obviously adored Tamsin from afar, and they'd never had the opportunity to work together. And as Richelle said, but everyone just clicked. It was really, you know, we feel very fortunate in terms of that, in terms of it.
Oh, that's brilliant. What a pleasure that must have been.
It was really lovely. Yeah.
And it's kind of in keeping with the cast and maybe the kind of little Easter egg touches that you mentioned earlier, some of the original cast were part of this production. Is that right? Could you tell us about that?
Yeah. It's quite a treat for me, because having seen this as a child, and this is one of my all-time favourite films. It's not just a childhood film. I think The Amazing Mr Blunden is an amazing story. So to suddenly be working with 3 of the original cast, so we worked with Rosalind Lander, who originally played Sarah, Madeline Smith, who originally played Bella, and Stuart Locke, who originally played Tom. And they have cameo performances in this film. But we also, on the day we filmed with them, brought their 2021 equivalent. So we had this amazing moment, and we recorded it as an interview with all of them together. It's quite special and quite magical. I remember standing on the top of the staircase, and we filmed in a studio kitchen, and we rebuilt the interior of the house. And it's not so dissimilar from the 1972 version. It's a big staircase, because it's the centerpiece of the story, is what happens on the staircase. And I stood there with Madeline Smith at the top of this staircase that we built, and she just turned to me with tears in her eyes and said, "It's bringing everything back to you."
Yeah.
And I think these are really precious moments when you can combine something from the past with something from the present, and it's seamless, like a seamless bridge between the two of them.
Also, as well, I think they were very young. You know, these kind of the cast from the past is what we kept calling them. They were very young when they made the film, and you know, when you're younger, these are much more impressionable experiences. So Rosalind Landor said her experience of being on set, you know, working with these kind of big actors at the time, and you know, and herself, you know, working with like Lynn Fredericks and things like that. You know, so it was really interesting. So they said it was very poignant for them to come back, and actually, you know, as Richelle said, the younger cast really looked up to them. Very sweet. You know, we're going
to post on Twitter. We're going to post the interview with the cast from the past and their equivalents, and also they talk with each other about what they feel about coming back and working on the film again 50 years on.
Oh, that sounds like it would be a lovely watch to hear that kind of side by side of the two perspectives on it. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
In terms of the kind of the magic of the film, it is very magical and, you know, perfect for Christmas time. Is that kind of the magic of the story still relevant for today?
Oh, absolutely.
It's a story of redemption, and that you can right a wrong from the past and make it right if you're truly wanting to, if you're truly sorry. I think that's what's the arc of the film. And the reason I think that the film sustains over 50 years and why it's such a favourite with all the people that know the original film. And that's still really, really poignant today. And I think when you make films that have a truism to them, a universality to them, and something hopeful, the film is very, very hopeful. I think that's absolutely the magic of the film. It's part of being human.
Yeah. And also, I remember when we had the read through and Simon Callow was there, he said, you know, if we were all given the opportunity to right a wrong, like we were all given the opportunity, what wrong would we make right? What would we do? And this man has lived his whole life, this character, with his biggest regret his whole life, and he's doing everything in his power to make this one wrong right again. And it's very moving. It's very, very powerful. But also it's got that to kind of link, as everyone, you know, was talked about in previous interviews, to Dickens, and the idea of getting to the end of the year and looking back and also looking forward, and about how we can kind of always try and better the way, you know, who we are and how we are in the world and how we treat people. It's very important. It's quite a very, very important message.
So we you know, aside with that, it's a film about time travel. Who wouldn't want to go back in time and see what things were like then? And that's fantastic. And
Exactly.
We have the image of the house in the present day, which has been destroyed by a terrible fire. And then you go back in time and you see how the house used to look and how wonderful that is. And then we have another strand of story, which is about the young boy Jamie, who's still mourning the loss of his father. And through the film and the actions that he's required to take by Mr. Blunden, he begins to bring his trust back. And there is quite a parental relationship with Mr. Blunden that is really moving and heartfelt. And it's something that we've put into our version because we always thought it was there, but we really wanted to make a virtue of it. And I think it worked really, really well.
Yeah.
Yes, it absolutely did. I wanted to meet Mr. Blunden by the end of the film, and I wanted to, you know, him to teach me some lessons as well. He was just a fantastic character.
Yeah.
A couple more questions. How did you kind of all find the filming process throughout the kind of COVID restrictions and challenges you must have come up against?
Very, very tough.
Yeah, it was an interesting time, you know, because by the time we filmed in June, July, we'd kind of, you know, we'd been in a process of being in it for a couple of months. So there was this assumption that, oh, everyone's kind of used to it now. We're in COVID, everyone's used to it. But actually the reality is people weren't kind of used to it. Mm-hmm. And, you know, the filming, we've all been, you know, we're all professionals. We've all been filming for like 20, 30 years. You know, we're all, we all know the process, but it changed the process completely. And actually, interestingly, someone said to us, oh, how was your crew screening? And I said, it was really weird because, you know, people turned up that you'd never really had a proper relationship with on set because you had to speak to these bubbles, and equally everyone's wearing masks all the time, so your communications are really cut down, and you know, there's a little bit of chat around the catering, you know, getting to know people, making friends, you know, having kind of these kind of informal, it's quite an intense period of time filming, and you have these kind of informal friendships with people that then dissipate, and it kind of it ended up, you know, it was quite difficult. It was very difficult, definitely, and it was limiting in not only just your communication, but also, you know, trying to get your ideas across to people and making sure that everyone understood, because, you know, a lot of people working from home, and, you know, and also, you know, in terms of just, you know, the simple thing of trying to go, it's this, not this, you know, you know, there's just simple things of being on set.
We shut down for a week. We had a COVID scare thanks to the Euros. So people obviously got a bit nuts because England was doing so well, and they did do very, very well, which we were very happy with. But it meant a lot more mixing, and, you know, we had to shut down for a week, which was quite tough. You know, Isibéal and I were on this trajectory to finish. Everything was moving forward. And then suddenly 11 o'clock at night, we had to phone everyone to say we'd had a COVID shutdown. And then we came back to the studio, just Isibéal and I, and it was like the Marie Celeste.
Half-eaten sandwich just left.
Very strange. So strange. But we did it. You know, it's not easy to film in COVID, and we did it.
Yeah, that period must have been particularly strange, especially when you're working on a bit of a ghostly kind of set anyway.
Exactly. That's very true. It really felt like everybody had just disappeared. Yeah. It was absolutely strange.
And people had been at home a lot, you know, and so suddenly they were nervous, you know, so there's obviously quite strict protocol when you're filming that, you have to run it by the insurance company and the broadcaster, and you have a health and safety company. And, so it's quite strict. And then suddenly all these new roles have been developed, like the COVID supervisor and the COVID assistant, and, you're having your temperature checked every day. So, it changes the workday in terms of how you do your work. It wasn't easy, really. I'll be honest. And crew were, people were amazing in terms of adapting, but people did find it hard.
Yes, I'm sure. We've had a question from a virtual village hauler here who would like to know if there are any other kind of Christmas stories that or ghostly stories you'd like to see made into films.
Well, we're looking right now at other stories that we'd like to do not next year, but the year after. We'd very much like to work with Mark again. It's been an absolute treat. Actually, I feel like he's like a family member now. We work so closely together, and we've got a few things up our sleeves that we can't really talk about, but definitely something ghostly and definitely a bit Christmassy.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant! We'll watch this space then, shall we?
I know.
Have the pair of you worked together before on films?
Isabel and I started Adorable Media about 6 years ago, and this will be our third outing since setting up Adorable Media. So not only have we got the Amazing Mr Blunden on Christmas Eve, but on BBC Two at 10:30 we've got the Netflix hit, which is part of the Ghost Story for Christmas strand. So that's a little less family friendly and a bit more spooky, hence it's
creepy.
But it's really good. It's really classy. Amazing actors: Robert Bathurst,
Rory Kinnear,
the magnificent Francis Barber. It looks absolutely beautiful and frightening. So, and then last year we did Martin's Close. So so this is our biggest thing to date, working together.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. And I think we've probably got time for one more question from a virtual villager here. So Catherine has asked, what inspired you both to work in the film industry?
The Amazing Mr Blunden.
I think Dynasty or one of those TV shows from the 80s. I thought my life was going to be really glamorous. In fact, Richelle and I joke about it quite a lot, going, I thought I was going to have clip-on earrings that I pulled off and answered a phone. I thought, my life was going to be this movie producer that was going to be really glamorous, but it's really hard work and long hours. So we can imagine out, Yeah. But we don't like storytelling. We love storytelling.
I just want to say to the people that are watching, I am very proud of The Amazing Mr Blunden. If anyone is a big fan of the original film, not to worry about that. We've made it with so much love and affection for the Lionel Jeffries version. And I think what we set out to do, and that Mark has pulled off magnificently in the writing and the direction, is that we've made Mr Blunden accessible to a whole new generation.
Yeah, we weren't trying to make anything better. We were just taking the baton and taking it forward. That's all we were doing. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's a fabulous watch. So,
thank you, Melissa.
I think that's probably all we've got time for today. So we must bring the interview to a close. So Richelle, Isabel, thank you so much for your time today. It was really lovely to chat with you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
We wish you happy Christmas.
Yeah, happy Christmas.
Yeah. So everyone can tune into The Amazing Mr Blunden on Christmas Eve. And thank you for tuning in, everyone. Goodbye. Merry Christmas all.